if you think about it or kind of try and conceive in your minds, what, first of all, the idea or a concept of an island should first sink in. So I can talk about, I mean, anybody can talk about the island being island and so on and so forth, but what is that experience of being on an island? And therefore, how does a human being live, and how do even wildlife, what sort of wildlife can exist in these areas? So first of all, remember, these are small, relatively small land masses surrounded by sea or water, basically sea water all around. And they are one of the most beautiful systems in the entire Indian and Southeast Asian kind of ecosystems. Excellent habitats for a range of wildlife. No tigers, leopards, and cheetah, and rhino, and elephant, and all that stuff. Because also, you should also understand that these are, as with body size, as animals get bigger, they require a larger landmass to kind of move in and be able to subsist on and live. So large mammals or animals are not able to survive in these island ecosystems. So you generally have relatively smaller populations of, and even smaller animals. Among the larger animals that are found not necessarily on land but live close to land in the water are crocodiles, saltwater crocodiles. They're the largest of the animals in the Andaman system. Of course, there are blue whales that kind of come in the waters, marine ecosystem. There are sperm whales. You even have humpbacks. Then your whale sharks come in on the waters. So very actually, if you look at it and read about it and kind of consider it, Andaman and Nicobar, located in the Bay of Bengal. If you look at the map, you can see the Himalayas north of Uttar Pradesh now. It curves through and across the Brahmaputra Valley. It curves and comes into the Arakan Yoma range in Burma, and then it comes down towards the south. And then it once it reaches the coast, there is these small islands that start off: Cocos, Greater Coco, Ox Island, and so on, part of the delta of the Irrawaddy. Then you come further south and you come to these islands of Cocos, which is then the beginning of the Andaman chain, actually, and landfall, North Andaman. So essentially, these islands are a emergent ridge of mountains, submarine mountains, which have emerged out of the sea from the entire arc. And it goes all the way down to Sumatra and further down to Indonesia as well. So the Nicobars are further south. There's another archipelago, again, emergent hills, submarine hills. You have Thailand to the east, Malaysia also to the east, Burma to the northeast, and so on. So because of the proximity of those land masses close to these islands, the flora and the fauna, the animal life, the wildlife that you find on the islands is similar to those systems as well. But it's also very common to the mainland Indian ecosystem also. Anybody who is listening to this podcast and is interested should actually try and find a good map of the Andaman Nicobar. There are a whole range of different kinds of maps available online, but you'll see it isn't a very simple coastline. It's very indented, very craggly, like a pencil. Somebody's taking a pencil, gone like a zigzag line across everywhere, and though that zigzag line actually makes it an excellent habitat for mangroves. A huge variety of mangroves exist in the Andaman chain, particularly. Beautiful ecosystems which are protectors of the shoreline, in which a lot of the saltwater crocodiles also live. And apart from saltwater crocodiles, there's a whole range of fish that use them as breeding grounds in the Andaman chain, including sharks, a whole range of other fish that go from the mangrove systems to the ocean. And in fact, a very connected and very related notion linked to the Andamanese is this. In fact, I learned of this through an interview with an old Andamanese man who's dead and no more now, man called Senior Now. I was talking to him or trying to find out more about the Jarawa and all when I was doing that survey between 97, 98, 99. He told me that while I was talking to him, many stories he was telling me. One of the things he told me was, he asked me, have you been to Interview Island? Because that's where he originated from originally, Interview and Middle Andaman, Northern Middle Andaman. I said, yes. He said, have you seen this huge water body where the police camp today is located? I said, yes. It's a huge, lovely, large, natural kind of pond, like a little waterfall, and there's water coming from below as well. Yeah, that is a very important place for my tribe. So I asked him why. He said, look, you people are all white and brown and different kinds of ghosts or spirits to us. My ancestors considered all of you as brown spirits, white spirits, yellow spirits, and what kinds of spirits, because we were actual human beings and people. When our people died, or when he didn't use the word, he used the Hindi word mar gaya, but when people passed on, they became spirits. And those spirits essentially were their souls. And the souls were moved from wherever their body lay into this water body that was found on the island. And that water body, he said, is endless. You throw a stone or try and kind of find out the depth of that well, it will just keep going down and down and down and down. You'll never kind of get to it. And it actually has an element of truth to it, because it's a huge deep cavern of water. But what he said is very interesting, that these people, our souls, people, human beings who lived on the island, their souls would go back into the ocean through such holes, sinkholes in the islands. They would go into those water bodies and come out into the ocean as fish. And they would be born as fish and come back to the shoreline as fish. And Andamanese who were living after them would hunt them and eat them as fish, as food as well. So, and it was like a cycle. If you think about it, if you understand and know that mangrove ecosystems are nurseries for various fishes to breed, it's very interesting that it's like the souls of the Andamanese coming into the nalas of the mangroves and going back into the ocean to become adult fish, which we eventually hunt and eat as well, and so on. Even though it's a tribal notion, it has a lot of relevance in kind of understanding how even people in those ages and times thought of and kind of understood the natural ecosystem. So, like I told you, apart from saltwater crocodiles, there's a whole range of both birds of wetlands, which are found associated with mangroves and the coastlines, seashores. Not many freshwater ecosystems inside, but because it is all under forest, now there are open spaces which are paddy fields and settlements and factories and roads and whatnot in the Andamans. But originally, none of that existed. It was only forests. And within those forests, there are a lot of endemic species as well, which are found, species which are like mainland India or mainland Thailand and Burma. But the ones found in the Andamans are, some of them, many of them found in the Andamans are endemic. They've evolved and speciated to become different species found only on the islands. And one very charismatic and kind of fantastic example of that is the Narcondam hornbill. It's a species of hornbill which is not found in the Andaman Islands throughout. It's only found on one island in the entire world. It's, first of all, let me start like this. It's found on one island in North Andaman, and that one island in Northern Andaman is part of about 572 islands of the Andaman. Okay, or 600 odd islands of the Andamans. And amongst those 600 odd islands, there's only one island which has the Narcondam hornbill. And the Andaman Islands belong to part of Asia, South Asia, which has many countries and so on. And all those countries belong of Asia, part of larger Asia and part of the world. In the entire world, there's one island which has that particular species of hornbill. That's how one kind of should be able to understand endemicity or endemic species. But that's a very charismatic and very isolated example, because a lot of the other endemic species that are found on the Andamans, unlike the Narcondam hornbill, first of all, they're also endemic, but they're found across the Andaman Islands. They're found in North Andaman, Middle Andaman, so on and so forth. They're spread around the islands. Narcondam Island itself is isolated. It's far off from the main Andaman Island. It's closer towards Burma than to Andaman, actually. So a huge amount of beautiful bird life that one can, in fact, if you're on Facebook, people who are on Facebook should look up in Facebook. There are quite a few Andaman avian websites and kind of groups and so on, where people share photographs of species of birds found in the islands. Some excellent pictures are shared today in today's day and age. When I started off, there was no Facebook and all. We used to go and see and look and you see the birds. And when you used to go birding, you used to go do counts and sort of look for the species. Yeah, finally I've seen that. Today you can see the photographs of them on Facebook sitting in your bedroom. Anyway, so there's a great, lovely kind of avifauna, bird life found in the Andamans and Nicobars. Now, Andaman and Lakshadweep, like other parts of, say, even in Gulf of Mannar, parts of Gujarat coastline and so on, are also known particularly for their coral reefs. Now, what exactly are coral reefs? They actually are also another animal ecosystem. They are animals. So we just see them as seem to be like a cemented kind of dead structure. They're not. They actually are live beings which have tiny little polyps on which the animals live in and create those huge apartments, so to speak, of colonies of those animals. And those coral reefs are home to a whole range of reef fish. which again form breeding grounds for a whole set of other species of fish which go out into the pelagic oceans and so on. Sea turtles which come there. There are even dugongs found in the Andamans, very few now. In fact, a lot of them have got caught in fishermen's nets. They were hunted out through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Even today, until early 2000s, one or two have been caught in people's nets and they're drowned in them or been hunted out or whatever. There are very few. There are about maybe, I don't even know, one of my colleagues studies and has been working on the dugongs, Elrica. Um, I don't know the exact number, but less than 50 animals are remaining in the Andaman chain, or much less probably, maybe closer to 25 or something like that. I don't know. But those are some of the rarer marine wildlife that you can see there. Now, you can't see, very difficult to see. But what is easily visible are fish, which you go scuba diving or snorkeling. All these fish you see in the reef, a whole range of them, like many hundreds of varieties and species of marine organisms, from fish to sea slugs, um, whole invertebrates, which I mean, insect like an insect fauna, but a marine invertebrates which live in the coral reefs. And beyond those coral reefs are the open oceans, where you have pelagic species like the vanjaram, your surmai, dolphins, some sharks, whales which come and pass by, marine traffic also, sea turtles. We have 4 species of sea turtles that nest in the Andaman Nicobar. On mainland India, most people hear of the olive ridley, or in some places very rarely of the green sea turtle, like Rushikulia in Orissa, Kahirimata Beach, and parts of Madras coastline, even in off Vizag, off on the Andhra coastline as well. There are turtle nesting beaches. But in the Andaman Nicobar, there are 4 species: the olive ridleys, the green turtles, hawksbill turtles, leatherback sea turtles also, and of which the leatherback sea turtle is the most endangered species of sea turtle across the world. And the only place in India where it nests in are in few beaches of the Andaman and few beaches of the Nicobar. And our team had worked on a lot of these surveys. One of my senior colleagues, a guy called Satish Bhaskar, he was the first guy in India to have walked along all the beaches over there and on the mainland and kind of map out and find locations where these species nest. So unlike on the mainland Indian coast, virtually every other beach was used by one of these species of sea turtle to nest, mostly green turtles or hawksbills. They can nest in small, narrow beaches as well. But olive ridleys and leatherback turtles require larger beaches. So apart from that, you also have freshwater fish as well, which are endemic to the islands, also unique to the islands in that sense. They're found in freshwater streams, which are very few today actually, which are free-flowing freshwater streams. Only in the tribal reserves will you find them. And what is important to also understand is, if you're talking about wildlife, despite the fact that there are some 98 odd wildlife and sanctuaries and national parks in the Andaman Nicobar chain, most of them have very small populations of wildlife, but they're beautiful habitats for that small population of wildlife that exists over there. The largest amount of natural wildlife found in the Andaman and Nicobar, are found in the tribal reserves, because the tribal reserves are the largest protected ecosystems in the Andaman Nicobar. So people who are listening to this should also understand that why are tribal reserves important? It's not just important as repositories for wildlife. They are the homes of these original islander communities. And because those original islanders exist there and live there, they have been living along with these various species of wildlife for centuries. From as far back as when the people actually went and inhabited those islands. And they still exist there because their way of life has not been kind of altered so drastically, unlike how we have changed and transformed the islands. So, monitor lizards, there are even frogs that live there. Have you heard of frogs? You've only heard of frogs that live inside a well or a stream or a river or puddles and so on. Have you heard of frogs that live in salt water? Yeah, there are frogs in the Andamans which live in salt water also. It's one of the one form of Immacarism, right? It's called Kanozo by the Karen. It's a large kind of bullfrog which lives. I've seen them off the beach also. Even the seawater comes on them, no problem. So they'll go back into the mangrove creek and live. They don't live in the sea, but they live inside or next to mangrove creeks and so on. They can tolerate salt water as well. So it's very beautiful in terms of, and diverse. If somebody's interested in wildlife, it's a very different experience or it should be, and it can be, and it actually is a very different experience for a person who's interested in wildlife to view and visit and see what is there in the islands. You're not going to go in a safari or a jeep or a boat to go and spot dolphins or spot tiger or elephant or wild boar or whatever. They're there, and they exist in these various small niches or habitats in the islands. And like I told you, from frogs, a huge amount of insect fauna. There is the Central Agricultural Research Institute in Port Blair. There used to be a brilliant couple who were entomologists, Prashant and Mohanraj and Veena Kumari, who are among the Indian entomologists who have done the greatest amount of work in terms of putting together species of butterflies that existed in the islands. There are all many other scientists as well, not just them, who have Kailash Chandra and others from ZSI, who have written about these species of invertebrates that exist in the Andaman and Nicobar. So it's a whole range of wildlife that one should actually aspire to or kind of look forward to and try and understand. They're not tiger, elephant, and rhinoceros that you're going to find over there. There are butterflies, there are birds, there's insect life, there are the indigenous communities, and settler communities who exist in the islands today who are interesting in their own ways, all of them interesting in their own ways as people who are and communities or inhabitants of the Andaman Nicobar.